3 Americans detained in China were released after the Biden administration negotiated a prisoner swap. Mark Swidden, Kai Li, and John Leung are on their way back to the U.S., a spokesperson for the National Security Council (NSC) said in a statement on Wednesday. Soon they will return and be reunited with their families for the first time in many years, the statement said. The exchange was reportedly months in the making, and included the release of at least one Chinese citizen in U.S. custody. President Biden raised the issue of Americans wrongfully detained in China directly with President Xi Jinping earlier this month when the two met during the APEC summit in Peru, according to an American official familiar with the negotiations. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan also urged for their return during his visit to China in August. Thanks to this administration's efforts and diplomacy with the PRC, all of the wrongfully detained Americans in the PRC are home, the NSC spokesperson said. The swap was first reported by Politico. Mr. Swidden, 48, had been detained since 2012 and was facing the death penalty after a conviction for narcotics trafficking. Swidden denied the charges and the State Department classified him as wrongfully detained, previously raising concerns about his health. Mark Li, 60, had been held in China since September 2016 on what activists say were trumped-up spying charges. John Leung, 78, has led several pro-Beijing groups in the U.S. He was arrested in 2021 and sentenced to life in prison on espionage charges 2 years later. According to the New York Times, multiple U.S. officials said they had discussed releasing Chinese citizen Su Yanjun, 42, who was convicted in the U.S. on espionage charges 2 years ago and sentenced to 20 years in prison. Su was first Chinese government intelligence officer ever to be extradited to the U.S. to stand trial, the Justice Department said. As of Wednesday morning, Su was listed in the Bureau of Prisons system as not in BOP custody. The deal marks a diplomatic win for Biden in the final months of his presidency. It follows the release of another American considered wrongfully detained, David Lin, a pastor who had been jailed in China from 2006 until his release in September. During his 4 years in the White House, Biden oversaw the release of more than 70 Americans, including from Russia, Venezuela, and Iran. On Wednesday, the U.S. also lowered its travel advisory level for mainland China to Level 2, exercise increased caution.